The 35-year-old is charged with second-degree murder. It is the most serious charge Hennepin County Attorney Mike Freeman could hand down. According to the criminal complaint, Nicholas Kraus said he floored the accelerator on his Jeep when he saw the vehicle barricade with people near it. He told police he thought he could jump it. Instead, he's accused of slamming into protester Deanna Marie's vehicle, pushing that vehicle into her and killing her. Freeman says they have not found evidence that Kraus wanted to specifically target protesters, but to find him guilty, they will have to prove he intended to kill Deanna Marie.
He said he saw the cars and the barricades and the people. And at that point in time, he intentionally accelerated and went right at them. So those actions are strong evidence of intent.
Hennepin County Attorney Mike Freeman went on to say that Kraus had a profound drinking problem and that alcohol could very well be the root cause of what happened.
All right, Jennifer, thanks for keeping us up to date this morning.